Hey, what is going on, guys, and welcome to our 46th Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes in-depth character review, where today we are reviewing Ezra Bridger. With the Thrawn legendary event springing out of nowhere and forcing many of us to farm the Phoenix characters without us having any desire for them, many have been wondering, are any of the Phoenix characters good? And I've also been seeing a lot of Ezra requests, and luckily he is actually a very solid character, as we will find out today. And before we get started, just two quick shoutouts to B. Masu and good old Maurice. They are two fellow guildmates of mine, and when I was in need of some Ezra footage, they came to the rescue and provided some of the footage you will be seeing today. So thank you so much for your help. Links down below to their YouTube channels, but let's get right into it and talk about the history of Ezra Bridger. Ezra Bridger was born on the planet of Lothal, and at an early age, he became exposed to resisting the Empire and all that it stood for. Due to his family's role of speaking out against the Empire, they were imprisoned, which left Ezra as an orphan at a very young age. He enlisted himself as a rebel fighter within the Phoenix Squadron, and later became a revolutionary leader in the early rebellion against the Galactic Empire. During his time in the Phoenix Squadron, he was taken under the wing of Kanan Jarrus as his Padawan, where he learned the ways of the Jedi. And despite the temptation of the dark side, Ezra continued to maintain his path with the guidance of his master, and Ezra's actions inspired a number of rebel cells to begin working together to fight the Empire. So with that brief introduction of Ezra's history out of the way, let's talk about Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and how you can unlock and gain more shards of this character. And one of the great things about Ezra Bridger is that he is a very accessible character for free, especially for the beginner player, where you can farm him on Cantina Battle 2B for 8 energy per battle. And if you are interested, you can also get shards of him in fleet shipments for 400 fleet tokens per 5 shards. And just some personal advice, I highly recommend not getting Ezra out of the fleet shipments. The fleet shipments has many valuable things in there, and Ezra is already a very accessible character on Cantina Battle 2B, so just stick to Cantina Battle 2B to get him all the way to 7 stars. However, even though he is a very accessible character, you may be wondering, is he even worth getting? So to answer that question, let's take a look at the stats of Ezra before we consider mods and abilities, and we first dive into the pros. The first thing that is very solid for Ezra is his speed, where he is number 31 in the game, where his speed is 143, and paired with this speed, he's also seen as number 26 for maximum damage, where his maximum dealing attack before mods and abilities are considered is 6,789. So he is a pretty fast character, and he deals some good damage, which are two great things to pair. And on top of that, he has 5% health regeneration, which goes along pretty well with all that. And now we look at the average things. They're pretty decent as well. First of all, number 49 in health, where his health is 19,124. Likewise, we also see protection at number 47, where he has 21,696 in this game. And then we also have combined health and protection, where he is seen at number 48, and his combined health and protection is 40,820. So he is a fairly durable character in this game. And the last average thing, which starts to seep into the cons, is number 71 for maximum basic damage, where his basic attack does 4,040 damage, which isn't all that bad considering that this can attack up to 2 times in 1 turn alone. And when examining the major stats for a character, there really isn't anything that lands in the cons, which means Chewbacca gets a day off from crying, and we can dive straight into his kit. One thing that makes Ezra a very solid beginner player as well as an advanced player is that you are getting a lot out of his kit without any Zeta mats even in his kit, and his second ability does not even have an Omega upgrade. So let's take a quick look at all this. His basic is known as Rushing Strike. It deals physical damage to the target enemy with a 40% chance to attack again, and as I alluded to earlier, if Ezra has no debuffs on him, the chance is doubled, aka it has an 80% chance for him to attack again. Now his second ability is known as Flourish. It has a pretty low cooldown of 3 turns, and this does not have any sort of Omega upgrade. It deals physical damage to the target enemy and dispels all buffs on them. If the enemy had no buffs, then this attack's cooldown is reduced by 1 and Ezra gains 50% turn meter instead. This means at times this could be a 2-turn cooldown ability, and the 50% turn meter is great when you want to quickly transition into Ezra's next turn. But the really important thing about Ezra is his ability known as Watch and Learn also has a 3-turn cooldown, and this allows you to target an ally of your choice who also attacks, and then Ezra assists that ally he just called. And then on top of that, Ezra deals 20% more damage with his basic, and if you know his basic can attack up to 2 times. And then both attackers gain a bonus effect depending on the chosen ally's role. If you choose an attacker, there's a plus 100% critical chance for this attack. If you choose a tank, there's plus 40% protection up for 2 turns. And if you choose a support character, there is plus 40% turn meter gain. So this ability provides a lot of flexibility in battle. As you are battling, you can decide if you need turn meter, if you need a guaranteed critical attack, or if you need some protection up on a character. But lastly, in his kit, we see Push Through, which is his unique ability. Ezra gains 10% offense at the end of each of his turns. This effect can only stack up to 40% offense at the very most, and then when Ezra is defeated, the bonus is reset back to 0. So a lot of offensive bonuses for Ezra, which means at times you will see some really big damage dealing attacks from Ezra in the game. But before talking about my personal opinion of Ezra, let's take a quick gander at the gear requirements, and he's about average to gear, not too crazy, but also not the easiest. For Rancor raid gear, he's right on average. AAT raid gear, he will need 2 pieces, and he will need at least 1 piece to get from gear 10 to gear 11. Gold gear, pretty much right on average, needs 2 full pieces of gold gear. Then for purple gear, he's pretty much right on average, where he needs 1,100 pieces, and the most popular pieces are the 150 Mark III Carbantes. He'll also need 100 Mark VI Hypo Syringes, which you can get both of those out of the daily challenges, and then you also will need 100 Mark V Stun Guns, which is another popular item for many characters in this game. But alright, already, let's get into the subjective part of the review, where I give you some of my personal thoughts on this character. And the first thing when I saw Ezra is that he seems like a Qui-Gon Jinn 2.0. He is in many ways similar to Qui-Gon Jinn, but also better in many aspects. Better maximum damage, much better defense, has the chance to attack multiple times, and a much more frequent buff dispeller. And on top of that, he can call in allies to assist that he also joins with, but he grants many more bonuses than what Qui-Gon Jinn offers, allowing you more options in battle. Plus, on top of all that, Ezra has the opportunity to increase his damage output the longer he stays in battle. He also has a ship unlike Qui-Gon Jinn, and does not require any Zeta mats unlike Qui-Gon Jinn, and does not need any Omega mats for his ability Flourish. Ezra is a character I kind of wish existed when I first played the game, and for people starting right now, he is a fantastic beginner character that is very easily accessible. The fact he is usable in both the Rebel and Jedi faction is an amazing investment and opens up many opportunities for successful beginner players and advanced lineups in the game. This is especially important to note since as a beginner you will most likely farm many Jedi and Rebels due to their accessibility, as well as the fact they are used for many important legendary events. You can use Ezra for Yoda's event, Palpatine's event, and especially, and most importantly probably, Grand Admiral Thrawn's event. As a result, if I were to help a beginner player, I would most likely advise them to make Ezra one of their first characters they should farm, seeing how widely used in the game he is and seeing how solid he is. However, when reaching the more advanced stages of Arena, he becomes slightly more limited in lineups, but he is still a very viable and a very strong character, despite the fact he does not have a complete Omega set, and despite the fact he has no Zetas as of now. But although it is a good thing from one point of view, I suppose, that he requires no Zetas to be really good and be versatile in this game, or even require a complete Omega mat for his Flourish ability, it also means there is room for improvement for him to be on par with some of the Grand Grandmasters in this game, such as Nihilus, Thrawn, Chirrut, and Baze, but despite this room for improvement and the fact he is kind of limited for advanced players, he is very close to being a top contending character in this game from my perspective. So most likely you are going to see many people use Ezra for advanced teams, and probably a lot of beginner players will adopt Ezra. It's a good thing to understand his weaknesses in the game by looking at his mortal enemies, and although it's a good thing that he is tagged to be in 2 of the biggest factions in the game, it also means he opens up himself for many more weaknesses and more enemies. One of the biggest problems are anti-Jedi characters, such as Palpatine, Dooku, Darth Vader, and Darth Maul are some of the biggest counters for Ezra, and they are still very prevalent in this game. Anti-Rebel characters are the other problem, such as Death Trooper, Veers, and Tarkin. And the other thing is pretty much any character that can apply a debuff can prevent Ezra from attacking multiple times. Daze is also a very powerful debuff against Ezra, which prevents his allies from assisting and prevents Ezra from assisting his allies, but also more importantly, Shock, Fracture, cooldown increases, and ability blocks prevent him from gaining turn meter and using his various specials that allow him to bring havoc upon the enemy. Now for the best friends section, I'm showing some suggested teams for some beginner and mid-game players as well as advanced players in the game, but more importantly for beginner and mid-game players, he is quite a flexible character for various different lineups. Ezra excels mostly in Rebel and Jedi-based teams, which provide you a lot of viable options in Arena. Being able to provide him with buffs such as Retribution, Tenacity up, Offense up, bonus attacks, assisting him, or advantage sets him up for a very successful battle. For beginner to mid-game players, the Phoenix Squadron can actually serve a decent purpose in the game. Or, one of my favorite beginner teams is Akbar leading, Leia, Stormtrooper Han, Ezra, and Biggs is a very accessible team for free for the beginner player, and it is especially deadly. Advanced players will not be using a full Phoenix team. They are not viable for advanced players, so Ezra is a bit more limited for top tier arena individuals, but R2-D2 is one of his strongest allies since R2 provides him many bonuses due to his rebel alignment. You can also try using him in a Wedge lead or a Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta leadership. Wedge, Biggs, Chirrut, Baze, and R2 is a great combination, but one of the most popular uses for Ezra is Qui-Gon Jinn Zeta leadership. Anakin, Yoda Zeta, Ezra, and R2 is a very strong offensive and defensive team for the game as of now. And now let's switch on over to some mod recommendations for the set. My number 1 recommendation is critical chance and critical damage mods, but offense is also a great number 2 choice because it pairs very nicely with his good damage output. Tenacity and speed are good 3rd and 4th options to ward off debuffs a little bit more and to make him a lot faster in battle. Then for the primary and secondary mods, speed is a number 1 priority for this character as well as his critical damage mods. Protection is an excellent choice to increase his already decent defensive capabilities, and potency mods are definitely not needed for this character whatsoever, so do not use potency mods unless there is a very powerful speed secondary attached to it. And then there was one more thing, and that thing is Yoda's do or do not checklist. And as I've been saying for a while in this video, Ezra can be used in so many aspects in the game, and for this checklist, Ezra can be used for almost every single thing in this game. He's great for Arena, Galactic War, Light Side battles, Cantina battles. He's used for the Jedi and Rebel mod challenges. He pilots the Phantom 2 for ships, and for raids, he's only a somewhat decent character for the Rancor, but he is amazing for the AAT, especially phase 1 in a Jedi team or in a Rebel team for phases 2 and 4. So he's a very solid character that works in many aspects of the game, which leads us straight into pulling up the Hall of Fame and telling you where Ezra Bridger ranks on this table. And from Grandmaster to Youngling, Ezra Bridger is going to be ranked as a Master for this game. So he is a very solid character and is very close to that Grandmaster ranking. However, there still is room for improvement. The Grandmasters do some crazy things. Thrawn can fracture, lock out a character completely out of battle. Then you have R2-D2 who grants many bonuses. You have Nihilus who can completely eliminate an enemy. So Ezra is not up to that standard, but overall, a very solid character for the grand picture of the game. And on that bombshell, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And if you did, feel free free to like this video. Also comment down below on what our next in-depth character review should be on. Be sure to subscribe so you're not missing a thing. Check out my Patreon page if you'd like to see me on a monthly basis or even get early access to these videos. Definitely check that out. But until then, we will talk again very soon. Peace out.